right, we are set and action!
Part of the fun of the show is having extraordinary things happen to people that you relate to and feel more or less ordinary.
One of the things we really want to do in Fringe is to really explore where science and reality ends.
Anytime you try to reinvent television, which this show clearly is doing, it's a massive undertaking, but it's also the most fun you can have.
This is a very ambitious pilot. They asked for an hour, we gave them 2. This is the opening of the entire piece of the 2-hour pilot, and it takes place on a flight from Germany to Boston, and we have to make this one of the scariest flights you've ever seen. But what happens on this plane is that a toxin is released, a contagion, through one of the passengers, who we call troubled in the script, and it ends up infecting the entire plane. So this is kind of a fun day because we have to be in a controlled space, and it allows us to really make it as detailed and as terrifying as we can make it. We have a lot of extras, we have a lot of players in here, and there's a ton of makeup effects.
One of the elements of the pilot has characters going through a fairly horrific physical transformation, and so we were really lucky to get some incredibly talented makeup artists and visual effects artists to work on that with us.
Collaboration between makeup and visual effects was a huge part of the show from the first day. I mean, I remember sitting down with Gordon Smith to chat about the process of the melting flesh, and it was 5 hours.
The job was to create 20 bodies that had been completely gone clear and dissolved back to almost a skeletal structure. So we only had 4 weeks and no access to any actors. But due to the nature of the thing, we had to invent the whole technology for this particular stunt. We suggested a solution of using what I call photographic prosthetic.
What they're doing is they're printing out what is essentially like a temporary tattoo and applying it to the body and then putting makeup application on top of that.
You had the tattoos, which really gave definition of the internal underlayer beneath the skin of a human being, and then visual effects can sort of animate the movement that's sort of inherent when the veins are actually working and the flesh is adjusting to the breathing. And I think the work that's being done is cutting edge. It's really good.
In the airplane set, we welded together a huge metal frame that came apart in 10-foot sections, then clad it with all the existing plane parts. So you can move business class from one end of the plane to the other. You can move the galleys around.
Well, with all plane sets, it's always a little tough because you have very small windows. But when we did it on the pilot, we actually were in nights. And so for that, we had to completely rewire the entire plane. So every single individual light was on its own dimming cube. And then on the day, it was a very complex series of lighting cues just to add dramatic effect.
We had 2 stunt performers and we had 2 air ratchet systems. We came and did rehearsals to find out our pressure, how much pressure we need to jerk them up and then to drop them, because Alex, the director, wanted people to hit the ceiling and drop right away without a deceleration. But doing it in such tight quarters, we wanted to be able to control them a little bit. So we had an air ratchet system that we could actually vary the acceleration and the deceleration. So when they did actually hit the ground, we were just decelerating and taking off the last little end of the impact.
We just really went for creating a large-scale event because it's Fringe. It's got to be so big that you can't imagine this happen on this plane.
We're on a tarmac in an airport, and we have a giant 747 flown in from Florida specifically for us for 2 days.
It was a charter 747 that was being used by the U.S. government to fly troops in and out of Iraq.
There was always the danger that we would lose the plane as well, because there was always the chance that troops would be called up. Obviously, that has precedence over making our TV show. However, you also are on a schedule.
And we were on pins and needles for 2 days that any second that plane was going to fly away.
So everyone's watching, hoping that it's a good day in the Middle East. And it all kind of worked out.
We were really trying to get that post-9/11 FBI universe going.
We have at least 50 vehicles, fire trucks, police cars, CDC trucks, ambulances.
Unbelievable. Lights going and sirens going. That was pretty fun. I've never done anything like that before. That was pretty fun, walking on that deck. My God, this is enormous. And it's the start of the show, too.
It was 40 below that night. Both nights, 40 below. And not only that, it was so cold that even with all those layers on, they made us stop every 2 hours because they were afraid the crew was going to get frostbite.
We were walking around wrapped up like Eskimos, yelling through our hoods, covering our faces, and there were a lot of, what?
The plane landed itself right on time, unlike every flight I've ever taken.
And Kirk's got this gigantic monologue. So we're out there and we roll on it. And Kirk starts talking and he's animated. And all of a sudden, halfway through the scene, we couldn't understand a word he was saying. And he's like, he can't move his mouth. And literally his lips froze and he could not move his mouth. So everything was a challenge that night.
They reported stains in the windows, no signs of life aboard the jet.
The hazmat sequence entering the airplanes was sort of a mini homage to Alien for me, and just sort of that entering the spaceship feeling and mood and not knowing what you would find. I wanted the plane to be dark, and planes are usually so bright that you can't make them dark. So I came up with just painting the entire interior of the plane with a dark fungus so that it would just knock out all the light and really make it a sort of haunted house.
They sprayed this awful mix of black paint all over this airplane. And we had actually picked only certain areas we were going to spray. And they sprayed the entire inside of that airplane, ceilings, floors, walls, seats, everything.
We had to lay plastic all over the floor because we put gelatin and Jell-O all over the floor for goo.
You keep thinking, oh, this week, it's a bit weird, but then the next week's the tank, and then you've got melting flesh, and it just sort of, there's no talking scenes, there's no, oh, easy, great, just you and me, and we'll do a scene.
We were told that there was this great prison location, there was an abandoned prison in a town called Guelph. And what we didn't count on was that Toronto was about to have its worst winter in 100 years.
I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, so you arrive in Toronto. And the first guy to meet me there was like, hey, it's pretty cold, eh? And you're in big trouble when one of the natives tells you it's cold.
We were literally in a blizzard with potato chip-sized snowflakes that were like smacking us in the face, and it was sort of like, welcome to Fringe.
One of the things we wanted to do was have a lot of texture, a lot of foreground, a lot of snow, wind, smoke, steam, just for the exterior stuff. So it was really, really cold, which helped us a lot.
It was freezing. It was minus 35 degrees and so windy. Josh keeps laughing because there's this scene with the doctor where she comes out of the prison and he says, excuse me, would you mind coming back inside with me? And I have to say, why would I want to do that?
And I'll never forget Anna standing out front in that cold that just stings your face, covering it all up and just giving a great performance in the middle of it all.
When it was insane, you couldn't see anything. I couldn't feel my face. I have never been so cold.
No fancy coat, there's no fiber yet created that keeps that kind of cold out, and everything hurts and it's just teeth-chatteringly cold.
There was a foot chase in the script, and when we were on our way back from our first scout, the location manager said, I want to show you this building, and there was this great building with these fire escapes and this rooftop.
That was tricky because what happened was we started getting really bad weather here, the roof was getting very slippery, and the day we came to rig it and pre-rig and rehearse, we had a blizzard. It was really, really bad.
Another problem because of the weather, because we were running across the tops of very old brick buildings and parts of the roofs were rotted. And to get up there, you had to go up a rickety old iron fire escape that literally maybe a couple days before we went up there, I had to get somebody to come out and re-weld it because half of the rungs were broken.
Safety first. Safety under winter conditions is the most important thing.
We did tests with the stunt people. That also was hard because we had them run in one shot, jumping to a fire escape on the other side. That was, I'd really maybe 10 feet below the takeoff roof, and they were hitting off the wall and then hitting the railing, and then they had to continue to run in the shot. So it was a tricky rig. It wasn't just a matter of safetying a person on a cable. We had to, again, let them run, jump free. Then we had to decelerate, and honestly, it took a lot of trial and error to get it just right.
These jumps from the top of the veranda and landing on these garbage bins and falling, and I literally had to just roll over, get up and run and hold the gun in Stig's face, and I managed to fall over about 5 times on the slippery ice.
And everybody really came in, and it just shows how well the crew worked together, and we did this great sequence. And I really started to like the idea that she was so determined to catch this guy who had done this to all these people and the love of her life, that she was just diving off buildings to get to him and didn't care if she broke a leg or anything, and that it was just without thought.
Anna gets all the cool Spider-Man stuff. I just do a lot of running. I'm chasing, and she's up on the rooftops, jumping from building to building, looking much more badass than me.
Well, I'm the agent. That's fair.
Done. Agent ID 52776 in pursuit of blue SUV. Heading south on Fenway. Need immediate assist.
After huge sequence number 20 was a car chase, and we were basically just trying to create a great crescendo to the 90-minute pilot.
We had tons of stunt people and police everywhere, and we were shutting down one of the biggest intersections in Toronto for this stunt sequence.
We were trying to do something different. Because we only had one stunt car prepped for that, it wasn't like having two backup cars. If we screwed up once or made a mistake, we could go to the second car and do it another time. And we had a lot of problems. I mean, the weather was so bad. The weekend before, we had a major blizzard here, and the cars had no control. There's no traction. Our stunt driver, Jamie Jones, he was really pumped and set on what he was going to do. The driver had all his knee pads, 5-point harness, fire suit. The car was totally prepped, of course, with roll cages, fuel cells, Lexan in the windshields.
And he sort of just prepped, went up and down the ramp a few times, got the speed right. And then I asked him after, and he said he sort of went and had a little prayer. His family were there, and then go. And he did it in one, and it was incredible. Hit his mark.
To see a total stunt like that without any visual effects or special effects, and I mean, it was pretty much a clean stunt, and he just did an amazing job. And to me, that's the big thing. That's one thing that really stands out about the show.
It was just perfect. Just work of art. I mean, just top to bottom.
We got it, and they got their aftermath on the same location.
It looks like such chaos to the outside, and then it's quiet, magic gets done, and it's like, get on to the next thing.
The show got finished. Toronto was amazing. So when it came time and it got picked up, I was actually kind of excited to go to Toronto and shoot. At the last possible second, New York passed the 35% rebate. And then all of a sudden, it became cost effective to bring the show down to the United States.
Anything is a big daunting thing, and let alone moving from Toronto to New York, where we started over with a brand new crew.